Hello, friends. Welcome to our webinar on what to teach. I am so excited that you're here. I'm so excited to share this. This is going to be amazing. So, as you're coming in, if you haven't heard, we are doing a full scale. I'm going to go all the way through from the beginning of your school days, from as early as you decide to start, all the way through high school, and talk to you about what to teach and what a good, solid educational plan should look like in your homeschool. So that's what we're here to talk about today. I'm going to introduce myself and do all of that fun stuff here in just a minute. But first, I need to know about you. So as you're coming in, will you please leave us a comment? I want to know where you're from and how long you've been homeschooling. So if you'll leave that in the comments, now get it started. That'll help me to know that you can hear me, because we always want to test that stuff out, make sure all that's working before we get started. So let me know in the comments where you are from and how long you've been homeschooling, or at least how long you've been homeschooling. So I want to know about that. And I'm going to open us up. I'm going to put on some slides while you get started, telling me about that, and show you a little bit about me. So while you're doing that, let's talk about me. If we haven't met, I'm Sorgius Jones, and I'm with Not Consume Ministries. So we help families grow in faith. It's our goal to put into the hands of homeschool families all the tools that they need to really help their kids to love the Lord, to know Him, to be biblically sound, biblically based. And it's a passion of mine, and it is so exciting that we get to do this. So you can check us out at notconsume.com if you haven't already done that. I see some of you are coming in. Before I keep going, I'm going to say hi to y'all, Christy and Lisa and Aaron and Stephanie and Tanya. Welcome. Glad to see you guys. We have everything from 7 years of homeschooling down to 3 years of homeschooling. I have a lot of different numbers already. I love it. Thanks for sharing those things. Keep it coming. Julie, 5 years of homeschooling. I love it. So I have been homeschooling. This is my family here that you can see. My husband and I have 6 kids. Sorry, sidetrack here. We have 6 kids. We have 3 girls and 3 boys, and I've homeschooled the 4 of my children. If you don't know my story, I was a single homeschooling mom for 13 years. So that's why I can't even remember how many kids I have. And I got remarried last year. Or 23, I guess it's 25 now. So in the fall of 23. So my 4 children have been homeschooled since the beginning, and you'll see them there in this picture. Welcome, Diana, Shannon, and Rachel. Love to see you guys. Lots of 7 years of homeschooling. That seems to be the number today. It's the magic number. We have Alicia from Georgia with 10 years of homeschooling. Love it. So I've been homeschooling for 22 years. I just finished up my 22nd year of homeschooling. And I graduated my 3rd kid this year. It can be done. So my oldest 3, Leah and Rachel and Nathan, all graduated from our homeschool. Leah actually writes on staff with us here at Not Consume Ministries. She's one of our writers. She does a lot of our younger kid things and our missionary things, which is one of her passions. She's a fantastic writer. She's actually been writing for us even before she graduated, which was a lot of fun. She got to do some of those missionary stories. She's always loved that. And Rachel is on staff at Logos Theater. They do dramatic productions. Making the Bible come to life is their mission. And right now they're performing in Branson, Missouri. And in the fall, they will be back at the Museum of the Bible. They've also been at the Ark Encounter in Kentucky. So if you have a chance to go to any of those, you can see their shows. They're fantastic. Right now they're doing The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, C.S. Lewis, Narnia series. And she's in charge of the makeup department there. Right now, number 3 guy who just graduated is also traveling with them. He's doing puppetry, which is actually way cooler than it might sound. He gets to be a giant tree, in the Narnia series. So he's this enormous tree guy, and it's a lot of fun for him. And then last but not least, the baby. We are still homeschooling. Luke is going to be in the 11th grade this year. So that's a little bit about my family. I love seeing all of these new ones come in. Alyssa and Leanne and Vicki and Kimberly and Jessica. welcome to you all. I see some of you have been homeschooling a very, very long time, and some of you have been homeschooling just starting. Leanne, congratulations. I love it. Homeschooling is amazing. And let me tell you, people usually ask me what it's like to homeschool high schoolers and like that whole, scary zone of high school. My friends, I'm here to tell you, it was the sweetest thing for us. I loved high school. It was honestly, I always say things like this, but it's really hard to pick my favorites. It's kind of like I love the baby stage and I love the toddler stage and I love all of it. It's just been so sweet. But homeschooling through high school has provided us with so much flexibility and all of that good stuff. Hey, if you are thinking about homeschooling through high school, or you have questions or you're really unsure, I have a YouTube video about that you're going to want to check out. We'll drop it in the comments at some point later so you can see, so you can think through all of the nuances of homeschooling in high school. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. As we already mentioned, we're going to talk about a little bit deeper. So let's go on to our next slide. I want to tell you a little bit about, well, first of all, I don't know why you came here to this session. Maybe it's because you've been homeschooling a long time and you're thinking about some different strategies or needing some new ideas. Maybe you just kind of have hit a wall and you don't know where to go. Maybe you're brand new to homeschooling and you're trying to lay the right foundation and get all the right information as you begin to teach. Or maybe you don't have any idea. God just sent this your way and you clicked and here you are. Either way, I'm glad you're here, but I want to tell you a little bit about why I'm here. So this is me when I graduated from high school, and then on the left, the day that I went to college. Now, in my home, college was like the holy grail. My mom thought it was literally the most important thing, and she wanted to move heaven and earth to make sure that I got to go, which I am eternally grateful for. But as a result of that, she did make sure that I didn't have any extra things to do. So I didn't have to do like laundry or dishes. I didn't take care of anything around the house. I focused on getting the grades and making sure that I could get to college. So that was kind of our focus in life. Here's what happened, and you might have already picked up on this. I was really good at school and I was really good at, excelling in that. And I got a degree. I have a master's degree in early childhood curriculum. And I loved doing all of that stuff. But then one day I graduated and I moved out. I got married and I had a home and I had no idea how to handle the rest of life. Basically, like the traditional education that I had all of my life that was really excellent kind of left me a little useless in real life. And I found myself not able to do a lot of the basic things, from budgeting to literally like I didn't know how to clean a bathroom and I didn't know how to take care of a baby or like none of this thing. I didn't know anything at all in terms of like those real life skills. And so I found myself wondering, when I went to a homeschool convention in my very, very early years, I went to this homeschool convention and there was a session called Harvard or Heaven. It was a Vodi Bakum session. If you've never heard him speak, fantastic. And Vodi had this topic and I thought, you know what? I need to, do I have to choose? I need to know, is it Harvard or Heaven? This is very important. And so I, went to this session and I sat down and I'm listening to all the things that he has to say. And the very first thing he said was, you probably came here because you were wondering if you have to choose between Harvard or Heaven. And I was like, oh yeah, me. And then he said, you've already chosen. And I was like, what? And I realized that, yes, I had already chosen. Every day I was making decisions, little decisions every day to go one way or the other. All of the curriculum, all of the things that I was putting as first or second or most important in our lives, I was already choosing. And I was super convicted that day. And I wanted to start off by talking to you about this because you are also already choosing. All of the things that you've already put into place for your homeschool, or the things that you've already done, like you are thinking through, or whether you're thinking through it or not, you are making this choice of what's the most important thing to me. And most of the time, we're doing that arbitrarily. We're not even actually thinking it out. So before we talk about like what do you teach and how does that look, we really need to back up a step and think through, well, how do we determine what's important? How do we know? How do we make sure that we have like the right priorities in place? So that's what we're going to talk about today. What you need to know is real success isn't measured by a diploma, it's actually measured by life. And so, yes, we want our kids to be successful, but maybe it's not like Harvard that we're looking for. Maybe we just want them to do a great job, right? We want them to do a great job because we want them to be successful in life. We want them to get a good job and all of that. But on this side, we've got this other thing, and it's real life. It's their spiritual growth, their spiritual maturity, their relationship with God. And those things have to be at least equal. If not, maybe teetered over this way, right? But the point is, you're going to have to decide. And so let's look at that really quickly. Oh, by the way, education is our opportunity to prepare our children for all that God has called them to do here on earth. So I want you to be thinking about this as we get to this next step, your vision. So before you, and you probably, maybe you've already picked out curriculum. It's July. If you haven't, good for you. You're starting in a good place right now where you can make some good decisions. But if you have, that's okay. Sometimes you can exchange things. Sometimes you can go back and make different changes, whatever. But we have to think about what our vision is before we make these choices. By the way, this page is from the Organized Homeschool Planner, which is my second most favorite book, right behind the Bible, of course, because this has saved my life a million times in homeschool. Having all of this laid out and this organized is so important for me. Now, you don't really have to have this book. This is just an organized way of doing it, but you do need to think about how you're doing this. So this is what I want you to think about. Where are you going? Is it Harvard or heaven? What is the most important thing to you? What do you want your kids to, why do you homeschool? What are the reasons? You need to sit down and put this stuff on paper and really think through what's important. This is your vision. By the way, if you don't have a vision, you don't know where you're going, right? The Bible actually says where there's no vision, the people perish. I like to equate it to flying on an airplane. You know, if you were to get on an airplane and the pilot were to say, all right, everybody buckle up your seatbelts. We don't know where we're going today. We're just going to put this puppy up in the air and see where we go. You might be really disappointed if you're headed to Hawaii, right? Because what if he ends up somewhere you do not want to go? We want to know that we're getting where we want to go at the end of our flight, right? So we're expecting that this pilot has that figured out. We're expecting that he's got a good, solid flight plan. He's got a vision for where we're going. And that's what we want in our homeschool. By the way, if you don't know this, a typical flight when you go from A to B, wherever, I'm always going to Atlanta constantly. That's like my number one flight airline. Or airport. So if I'm headed from here to Atlanta, he's creating a flight path for this flight. But 90% of the time, they're off course, which I thought was a really interesting stat. Except that we also pretty much without fail get to the destination that we want to get to, barring any major, very rare emergency, right? So 90% of the time he's off course. Most of the time we're getting, almost always, I've never not gotten where I want to go. So if we're going to get where we are trying to go, but we're off course 90% of the time, that says a lot about the power of a vision. And that says a lot about what you want in your homeschool. So there may be days that it's like, oh, we did not move forward towards this, right? But if we have this vision set in place and we know what is really important to us, and we know why we're homeschooling, and we know what we want our homeschool to look like, we've got this vision set before us, then even if we're 90% of the time off course, we're still going to eventually reach that vision because we've got it out here. If we don't have that vision, we're not going to hit it because there's no way. There's no possible way. So that's something to really think about as you're beginning your homeschool year. Sit down right now. By the way, we have a free boot camp that will help you walk through this planner, this vision, and all this good stuff. we have a totally free boot camp that you can do it. You can bring a notebook and do it and walk through and think through things like this, like your vision. Another thing you want to think through, here are the things that are, skipping ahead already. Here are the things that are included in your vision. Why you homeschool, what's important to your family, the life goals for your kids. That's like, what do I want them to be like when they graduate? Which, by the way, Tara, I love that you said the boot camp planner was super helpful. Love that. If the reason why, let's go back to Vodi and Harvard Heaven for a minute. The reason why it's so important to know what your top things are and what those life goals are for your kids is because when you're sitting there on a day-to-day basis and something happens and you hit a wall and you're like, wait, okay, so my kid is falling apart. There's something going on. Maybe it's a situation with a friend, or maybe someone moved, or maybe there's a family member that's critically ill, or there's a big thing going on right here in this child's life. And then there's math, right? And when you're sitting here and you hit this wall and the math is not going well, and you keep forcing math and you start ignoring this thing out here that's going on in your child's life, like, we're not reaching the goals. But what happens is we hold up this, Harvard, we think, and Harvard isn't really Harvard. What we really mean by that is holding up the academics are king. That's the most important thing. So if we're holding that up as our most important thing, all of our decisions are going to be based on that. And when we're sitting in that moment when our child really needs to just sit down and pull out the Bible and get some encouragement because life is hard and something is happening that's wrong, right? When that happens, we push forward. If we've got academics as our most important thing, then we're pushing forward on the math anyway, instead of realizing, no, I have the power as a homeschooler to stop the math. It can wait. We'll get back to it. I'm not saying we're never going to graduate because this thing happened, right? But we have to make sure that the heart of our child is taken care of above all, right? So we can set the math down a minute. And not only that, not only can we set the math down a minute when life is hard, but this knowledge of what's most important to us helps us to pick curriculum. Often people ask me, how do you pick a curriculum? What's the most important thing to pick? And here's what I say. Number one, does it match your worldview? That's the most important thing. And there's a lot of curriculum out there, a very, very popular curriculum out there that does not match your worldview. And you need to know what that is. You need to know what your worldview is and what worldview they're teaching. Even if it says it's neutral, things are not neutral. We know they're not neutral. The Bible says they're not neutral. So what is the worldview of your curriculum? That's the most important thing. Nothing else really matters. If the worldview matches up, whatever you use, it's going to be fine. Your kids are going to learn things. But if the worldview does not match up, it's not going to be fine. There are so many good pieces of curriculum out there. You don't have to worry about, oh no, what if I pick this one and that one is not the right one for my child? That might happen. And when it does, what you're going to do is you're going to say, this was not the right one for my child. We need to back up and make another choice. And sometimes I have thrown things away. I don't recommend you do that. Usually just keep it, keep it in a closet, because sometimes you can bring it back out. But there have been so many times when I have said mid-year, or even early other times, this isn't working. We're going to change it. And we change. We do whatever works best for each child. And every child is different. So you can't just buy one thing one time and say, oh, this is the one. And when I started homeschooling, I thought that was going to be the case. Because my ultimate goal is not academics. My ultimate goal is not Harvard. My ultimate goal is to shepherd each child to do whatever God has called them to do. So if I'm going to get there, this is how I have to get there. So life goals for each of your kids, write them down. Like, what do you want your kids to look like, right? Again, we will walk you through all of this in boot camp if you want to go through that. Totally free. Lastly, a philosophy behind every subject. Why do we teach what we teach? From a biblical perspective. Really important that you do that. Before you buy curriculum, before you think about what you're teaching, we have to think through these things, because these are the things that are going to help us to determine what those other pieces look like. So you see why it's such an important foundation. All right. I want you to remember, your kids are unique. Your kids are unique from my kids. Your kids are unique from the lady down the street. Your kids are unique from all of the best homeschool speakers out there. Your kids are unique. Your kids are unique to each other. You've got to remember that always when you're working with your kids, because it's really easy to just kind of lump them in. It's really easy to not to miss out on the fact that your kids need something individually. They learn differently, they grow differently, they think differently, they talk differently, they decide things differently, and God has gifted them with unique and different strengths. So with that in mind, there's no way we can come up with a one size fits all anything. It's not possible. So remember that as you're thinking about all of the things you need to do. Here are the top 3 considerations that I would top 3 things I would consider. Number 1, your kids' specific needs. Do they need something auditory? Do they need something that's multisensory, or something they can touch? Do they need something that they can hear? What is it that your child needs? Each one is different, and you need to think through this at the beginning of each year, because it does change, but definitely before you buy anything. Next, what are your family's needs? Your family is unique. Every family is unique. So again, don't look to the left and see this mom who has 10 kids and you have 1 kid and say, oh, well, if it works for her, it'll work for me. She has 10 kids, you have 1 kid. It's probably not going to work. Like, don't think that way. Think, okay, this is what's going to be unique. This is what my family needs. Every family is different. Remember at the beginning I said, or if you're just joining us, I was a single mom for 13 years. I had to work a full-time job during that time, and I homeschooled all 4 of my kids. Things were different for me than they might have been for another mom. Mostly, I had to teach my kids to be very independent. They had to learn. They had to be able to keep up with their work and do their things. I couldn't just sit all day long every day and micromanage every one of their subjects. It didn't work. By the way, I don't really think you should do that, even if you aren't a single mom and even if you don't work from home, because micromanaging your kids does not teach them good habits or skills, good time management, none of that stuff. So don't micromanage your kids. And if you want to know more about that, I have a video series called, the first video is called Stop Sitting Next to Your Child, something like that. It's in the playlist, our YouTube playlist called Homeschool Tips and Tricks. I think it's the top one. Watch that. I will walk you through step by step how to get your kids learning independently. Super important. We've digressed. I always land there because it's so important to me. But your family's needs are something that you have to consider. Maybe your husband's in the military. Maybe he travels a lot. Maybe you have a business from home, and every morning you have a farm and you're needing to take care of that first thing in the morning. Your school is going to look different than someone else's, and that's the case for all of us. So yes, you can get ideas from people. Do it for sure, because we love ideas, but don't compare and don't think that what works for someone else is for sure going to work for you, because it's just not. Erin says writing the philosophy down for each subject was really helpful to make the decisions down the road. I love that that feedback. So thank you. So glad you enjoyed the boot camp. Again, if you want to do boot camp, it's totally free. You can sign up and join in to do that. Next, your state requirements. Now, this is something that everybody has to look up for themselves. Don't believe somebody else. Don't believe an association that you might be part of or a group in your state. You need to go do your own research and read your state requirements. You might find, as most people do, that the things that you think are required are not even in there. And the things that other people in your area will tell you are required are also not even in there. So go read the state requirements. You can do that on the Homeschool Legal Defense Association website. That's hslda.org. You can go there and you can look up, your individual state requirements. You want to do that to make sure that you know. So those are the three things before we think about what exactly we're going to teach. What are your kids' needs? What are your family's needs? And what are those state requirements? I promise you don't know. You got to go look. By the way, as this is not a one-time thing, this going to look for your state requirements, because it may change, especially as your kids get older. And also when your kids are younger, you're going to pay attention to the little kid stuff and not necessarily the high school stuff. So be sure you refresh every year. Nicole, says that she's so grateful that we told her to go look those things up. And I'm so glad. I'll tell you, a personal friend of mine, when I first moved to South Carolina, she said, I was kind of giving her my homeschool schedule because we were talking it through. And she's like, how do you get enough hours in the day? And I was like, what do you mean? She said, well, like, how do you get your 8 hours in? And I was like, 8 hours for what? She's like, well, you have to homeschool for 8 hours a day. And I was like, according to who? And she said, well, that's a state rule. Really? So I was like, let's go to the website and look it up, like together. Let's go look it up. And I knew that this is something that homeschoolers do because I'd been in this, field for a while. And so we went and we looked, and she was shocked to find out that there's not any requirement for a number of hours for our state. But she had honestly couldn't even remember where she had heard such a thing. She didn't know if it was just, that traditional school idea and that she got in her mind of, oh, well, this is what you do, or if it was someone who told her that or whatever. But somewhere along the way, she got that in her mind, and she was stressing herself out with, we must sit here at the table with these books for 8 hours, which was terrible. So go read your state requirements. There's my story of the day. All right. Now, write down ideas of what you want to teach until graduation. Oh, I should tell you this. I've already told you my favorite book, second favorite book. All the resources that I'm going to be talking about today are part of our back to school sale, which just happens to be going on this week. How convenient. And everything is 25% off. So if you want to grab one of these planners, it's 25% off. And we do have some details for you there on the screen. All right. So we're going to write down all of the ideas that of the things that we want to teach until graduation. Now, if you have no kindergartners, this is divided into 4 categories. You're going to do primary, you're going to do elementary. That's primary is like pre-K through 2nd grade. Elementary is like 3 through 5, 3rd through 5th grade. Then you're going to do middle school and high school. That's what those 4 categories are. And I know they're a little bit covered by that banner. So you're going to write those things down. What do I want my kids to kind of learn? Not like very specific, but broad ideas of what do I want to teach them? What are the most important things for both each age level? Now, if your kids are past the primary age level, go ahead and start where you are. If your kids are in the primary age level and you're a long way from high school, that's okay. I still want you to fill it out because it gives you a vision of where you want to go someday. Know that this is going to change. It's going to change. Mine has changed drastically over the years. It's changed for individual kids. So it has changed, but know that it's great for you to write it down and kind of just think and dream about what it should be now, just so you have some idea of what someday might look like. Now, I'm going to help you break down all of these, so don't worry about the fact that you can't see these little spaces, because I'm going to talk to you about what we should be teaching and learning in each of these age levels. So let's do it. Early elementary is our first one. This is the one that I said was like ages, I call it primary as well, ages 4 through 8 or pre-K through 2nd grade. So if this is you, this is where your kids are right now. They're basically beginning readers. They're taking in all of the information in life to help them to learn how to read. And that's how I define these kids. Now, what do we want these kids to know? Most importantly, reading and math. So those are the main things. We want them to begin to do letters and sounds. We want them to begin putting those together as necessary in simple words. That's most important. Secondly, we want them to begin thinking through numbers. Basic number sense is really where we are with this. We're not talking about major math concepts necessarily. So I mean things like number recognition, seeing this is the number 2. Okay, that's 2. I mean things like giving my kids 2 packs of sticky notes, and maybe even there are 8 cookies and there are 4 kids, and we talk about that and we're like, oh, is there enough for everyone? Yes, there's too many. In fact, we can all have how many? Two. That's dividing. We divided all of these up. Use math terms when you're doing things like this, and we are giving these to our we're dividing all these up, and we're each getting equal, big math word, number of cookies, right? So that's the kind of stuff that we want to be doing, and it probably sounds really simplified, but it is very, very easy in this age level to talk and learn and go through life doing things so that your kids have that experience. This is how they really learn. One of the frustrations that I have is people jump into this big, long, in-depth math textbook that has these really foreign concepts, and they still don't understand the basics of what those things look like. So if your child has never taken a plate of cookies and talked through the math language of divide and equal and those kinds of things, then when you put it in a book, it's like foreign language. Doesn't make any sense at all. So we definitely want to make sure that we are working through math in a very hands-on kind of way in this age level, for sure. Most important thing. Then aside from that, the next thing that I like to do in this age level is explore. I think that exploring, this is the age level when they're really interested, they're soaking up all the things, and exploring is something that you can do together. That's why we have the two pieces of curriculum that we have for pre-K. We have All Around Town, which is not pictured here, and then Backyard and Beyond. Both of these are formatted about the same, and the goal is for your kids to get out and explore. We want them to go on little field trips, which is really just going around town, like the little one says. The younger pre-K one says they are going around town. They're visiting community places that you really go all the time, but they're kind of studying how it works. So they're looking at the grocery store, and they're looking at the vet's office and the post office and all of those places in town, and they're learning things as they're experiencing real life. Really important as the younger ages. Also really important that you just get out there and do stuff, because there's going to be plenty of time for paper books and sitting there all day, and you don't need to do that yet. So that's what All Around Town is like. Of course, you don't have to buy that. You could get something, or you could create something for yourself. This is our easy button, and as you see, it's on sale. So, good timing for sure. Backyard and Beyond is just like All Around Town. It's a field trip, so to speak, and we explore nature, as the name would imply. So we do start in your backyard, but then we're exploring all kinds of things, from a pumpkin patch or whatever you have in town that would work for that, to just a nature hike and all kinds of different places that your kids can go and explore God's creation. So think about things like that in the early years. How can you really do interest-focused learning where they're thinking about the things around them that they're curious about, and not just giving them a giant stack of curriculum, because that can get really frustrating for the little people. So, all right, let's move to Bible. So that's kind of that's our core academics, math and reading, and then everything else is learned through exploring the world around us. Then we want to do some Bible. Now, at this age, I highly recommend you focus on relationships. And that's because your kids, they are working on that at this age. So this Bible study bundle starts with obedience. So that's a good place to start. Again, you can go through the Bible and write and come up with these Bible studies on your own, or you can do the easy button way, 25% off right now. So we start with obey, because, by the way, none of the rest of the Bible studies really matter unless you've laid that foundation and your kids know why they need to obey the Lord. It's all about obeying the Lord. It does have a side benefit of obeying your parents, but it's really about obeying the Lord, and why we obey God, and what the benefit of that is, and why it matters, and what that looks like specifically. So that's a really interesting thing to do there with your kids. So obey. And then we work on a sibling relationship, conflict resolution, serving, and friendships. So those are the kinds of things that you want to be focusing on here in those early years in pre-K. I love, Tara says, school isn't a place. You take trips and adventures and tie it back to lessons. Yes, I love that. And I wish that there had been something out there to help me do that when I had little people. I will tell you, we got together, my friends and I got together and did this together. So that's another thing. If you have those little people and you're in that age range, like think about friends that you might have that you could get together with and go on these field trips. And I set them up and I said, hey, let me know if you want to go. This is where we're going this week. I'll just need a head count to let the place know so they don't think that we're coming in and ransacking the place or whatever. And I would do that. Overall, we hardly ever paid for a field trip. Okay, like once a month or less, we would pay for a field trip. Most of the time, we would just go in and do something that was free, and I loved that. So, anyway, okay. So this is the relation. This is where we want to go for our Bible. Let's move to home economics. So home economics, you're going to see, is a very important subject to me because of what I said when we started this. I didn't get that experience where I really learned how to do things. And I really want to make sure that my kids know how to do that. So starting all the way from the very beginning, we want to help our kids to learn how to use a checklist. We want to help them learn how to do basic self-care things like making their bed, eating breakfast and brushing their teeth and, cleaning up after, getting dressed and things like that in the morning. So I love, Mulberry Market Designs. I can't remember your name. I know you said it earlier. Says that our kids they have just started My Brother's Keeper and love it. Thanks for that testimony. I think that is amazing. Tara, we have the Bible studies that I was just showing just a second ago. They are written for kindergarten age level as well as others. So we have a variety of age levels that you can choose from there. So, Kaylee. Love it. That's a pretty name. Okay, so home economics is where we want to go with self-care. That's just the basic, like how to take care of your body stuff that they're going to later, like it's going to be a habit that they don't even think about later. Okay, so also at this age, we want to expose them to a wide variety of arts. As much as you can, take them to all the places. Now, here's my pro tip on how to do this. If you have a theater in your town, like a performing arts theater, call them and ask to be put on the groups and schools list. They will let homeschoolers go to those performances that are for groups or schools. So they're often called SMART performances. Sometimes it just went right on my head. Sometimes they're called student performances. Most of the time they're called SMART performances. They'll probably know what you mean if you ask if they have that. So if something's coming into town from, the Nutcracker to some kind of music thing, whatever it is, you can call up and ask about the SMART performance, or also universities will do this too. And you can get in. The cool thing about the SMART performance is sometimes it's kind of a a run straight through dress rehearsal. So it's free. It can be free or very cheap. And there will be plenty of kids. So you don't have to worry about your child still learning how to have manners in these kinds of atmospheres. And that's a nice thing, right? So I would, that's a great place to start. So your kids will appreciate and be interested in a variety of these things. Next, you might be wondering, okay, so if I'm not going to do anything like super formal, how do I keep track of all of the things? The way you do that is by doing inventories of the things that your kids have learned. We have this in our primary planners. You can download some of them offline, but doing things like, figuring out where your kids stand with the numbers and the letters and the things that they know, so you know which ones you need to practice as you're going about in your daily life. And maybe you come to realize that your child somehow never really figured out the letter Z. So you start looking for places where you can show them the letter Z and start kind of focusing on it more. And that makes it naturally something that they will grab onto. So, okay. Late elementary. This is students in grades 3 through 5. I call them developing readers. And I do this because, by the way, if you don't know, the average age to learn how to read is 8, which means that if that's the average, there are lots of kids above that still learning how to read. But also, learning how to read isn't just Bob books. And I'm not picking on the Bob books, they have their place, but we have to read beyond that. So technically, although your child might be reading basic CVC words, which is a consonant, vowel, consonant, like cat, they need to go beyond that. That's why we call them a developing reader. And honestly, that's what at second, third, sometimes fourth, and even fifth grade are all about. Evie, I'm not sure which way to say your name, so I apologize if I mispronounced that. Yes, you can watch this video again and again. It will be here on YouTube under the live spot on our channel. So yes, you can watch it later. So developing reader, they're still learning how to read, which means we're practicing that skill a lot. Now, what does that look like? Well, we're going to practice reading. If your child is a solid reader, they've got their CVC words and they're reading books on their own, you don't necessarily need a reading curriculum. Really, what they need to do is practice reading all the time as much as possible. That's why we have the reading journal, by the way, because I wanted my kids to be able to pick. This is a major roadblock for some kids, especially if reading was a struggle and they really they were maybe a little bit of a late bloomer or whatever. Reading what you want to read and what you find interesting is always more powerful than reading what someone else told you to read. So that's where a lot of times a reading curriculum will fall short, because the story might not be interesting to the child. And then what? Well, they're not going to learn as much. So we created this. My daughter and I created it together because she was a struggling reader. This was my second daughter, and she wanted to read what she wanted to read, and she barely wanted to read that, but it was not negotiable that she had to read, but she wanted to read what she wanted to read. So I wanted a way that she could read those books and that I could know that she read them, and also teach her basic literacy skills along the way. So that's kind of what the reading journal is. They do half a page for 10 to 15 minutes a day after they read the book of their choice. And that is more than enough for a reading curriculum. Of course, you can create something like this yourself if you so choose, but we have it on sale right now too. So I hope that's a blessing to you. It is our goal to make these things as economical as possible. So we hope that that helps. All right, math. We want to focus on in these 3rd through 5th grade ages, skip counting. That's the most, skip counting and math facts. Those are your most important things. If your child has math facts down solid by the end of elementary school, then all of that higher level math will be almost easy. But the problem is we usually don't. We usually get so focused on all of these other math skills that we don't know our basic things. So they need to know addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division inside and out, all the way from zeros to 15s. So do that by skip counting. That's one really great way to help your kids really get that number sense. And then, of course, practicing the math facts. We love extramath.org. I'm not going to give you a whole lot of curriculum in here because the list could go forever, but I will mention that one specifically. It's a secular program, but there's nothing in it that is concerning, because literally the guy just stands there and does math facts. There's no story problems. There's nothing. It is free, which is always a plus. But most importantly, unlike some of the cuter things like bingo bugs and apps and stuff, extra math helps your kids practice math purposefully. It's intuitive. It knows what they need to practice. It knows what they already know. So it does review things that they don't already know, or that they already know, but it does focus on those things that they really need extra practice with, and it'll be a lot better. So focus on math facts. I'm not saying you can't have a curriculum, just make sure you find something that either focuses on it, which is hard to find, or you add a supplement like extra math there, and that you make sure you get your skip counting in. Even if your program doesn't cover it, make sure those facts get done. For social studies and science, stay interest driven. Don't get caught up in like a lot of curriculum and a lot of books. That's not necessary. Sometimes I'll take my kids into the vendor hall at a homeschool conference and say, all right, let's pick a science. And then they can choose something that they think looks interesting. I've also done things like take them to the library and we'll check out science and social studies related books. And we keep a notebook, just literally like a spiral bound 50-cent, which now I went to the store the other day, and you can now buy school supplies. So go grab several of those now, and basically they would just kind of record a little bit about what they learned about the starfish or whatever, and maybe draw a picture, and we would call that science. If your kids pursue what they're interested in, they're going to learn a lot more about it than if they are doing whatever the book says. So yes, it will be hodgepodge, but remember, we don't, facts aren't the purpose. The main focus of learning is to learn how to pursue knowledge. And that's what we're teaching them if we let them pursue something they're interested in. I'll piggyback on that and say, the more real life things you can do, the better. So take your kids to all the places that you can possibly afford. We've been doing this. I did this as a single mom on a very, very low budget. And we've been doing this all along. I love national parks. The pass is $30 a year for your whole family, or maybe it's $35 now. It's something around that price. And it's a super cheap way to take your kids places where they can learn things and grow and get that knowledge. You can camp, so it's, a very economical thing to do. But, if you're studying those topics, try to get somewhere where you can actually touch the real things. Go to the museums, whatever you can, because that real life learning is so much better. Okay. Lisa's asking a question about the planners for primary and elementary. So our primary planners, we have an A and a B. A is for pre-K, B is for kindergarten, and then elementary is really like 1st through 5th. With the first grader, you'll be writing in there probably for them and teaching them along the way how it's laid out and how to do it. And eventually they may take over for themselves, or it's possible that it takes until 2nd grade for them to do that, which is totally fine. So probably the elementary planner would be the best. There's 2 different colors. They're exactly the same. All right, let's go to the next slide. At the elementary age, let's talk about what they should be learning spiritually. What kind of Bible content do we want? First, we want to work on those heart issues because this is the age where they're super impressionable. You've heard the stat that 61% of spiritually active teens walk away from the church, or it's up to like 66, depending on who says it. You've heard that stat. Well, the deeper findings for that have shown that kids start to have doubts largely as early as middle school. Not just a little bit of them, but most of them are having their doubts in middle school and not sure about their faith. So these years, these like 3rd to 5th grade years, are really important for laying that foundation as solid as possible. So be in the Word, be studying these kinds of things. Our Heart series covers topics like contentment and work and your mouth, the things that you say. There's a Keep Thy Heart is a walk through Proverbs 4, which talks about the kinds of things that you want to keep out of your heart. The whole guard your heart principle, and those kinds of things that you want to keep out of your heart, from bitterness and discontentment and all of those things, anger and fear that will consume you, and we don't want that. So that's kind of what that series is about. The next series that you see on the screen is the Foundation series. So this is beginning theology. Again, really important that our kids are getting this now, before they start asking questions that we're giving them this information. So this covers Old Testament, New Testament. So that's what I would cover, even if you don't want to do one of these bundles. Cover the Old Testament, cover New Testament. And really what we do is we give them an overview. So we have one lesson per book, and it's a 15-minute lesson, maybe even a little bit shorter. So they're not getting every detail of the book, but the goal is for them to see overall what God's story is and what God has to say in his word. So that's what those are. Then we study God's character, God's love, and the theological discussion of salvation. So that's what I would cover at this point in your studies. Next, home economics. Now we're going to focus on home care. So one thing I really want to do at this age is help my kids to go through every room of the house and basically master it. So that's what the Project Clean chart will help your kids to do. It gives them 8, I think, key areas of the house that they need to master. It gives them instructions. That's very important. Step-by-step instructions for how to do that chore. And then it teaches them to master that. We have like a sticker reward system so they can put it on there and a little lanyard and all that. But whatever you do, whether you use this resource or not, help your kids to focus or to learn each area of the house so they can master the main things, the bathroom, the kitchen, their bedroom, laundry, etc. So let's see, next. Fine arts. So for fine arts, now is the time to start thinking about what your kids might be interested in. We can still do those smart performances and things like that, but we also really want to make sure that our kids are getting to pursue their interests. Now, the sky is the limit on this. Think big. It's not just soccer and basketball, although that could be a possibility. And you see the third picture there in the middle. One of my kids did participate in basketball at one point, but we also did piano. My kids have been very active in the theater, hence their career choices, my daughter's career choice. And I have a lover of horses, and she showed horses and still teaches lessons to this day. So there's a lot of different things that your kids can do. Think about what they might be interested in doing and help them pursue that. By the way, these could possibly be future careers. Think way bigger than, my kid might be the next Michael Jordan. Think about what is it that the Lord has gifted your kids to do, and give them those experiences, not in a high stakes way. My only rule is you must stay for however long you committed to. So for example, my boys, they were very eager to do piano. They wanted to do piano. I signed them up. They took piano. At one point in November of the school year, one of my boys said, I don't really want to do this anymore. I want to quit. And I won't allow that. But after he finished out the school year, if he wanted to quit, that was fine. So that's my only rule. They need to they need to honor their commitments because integrity is really important. But then after that, if they want to move on, cool. So let them experience things, let them to see those things. This does lay that foundation for their future careers. And it's a good thing. It's good for them. So, all right, let's go to middle school. Now, if you don't have any kids that are this old, I hope you won't drop off, that you'll stay and think through what this might look like someday, because it's not as bad as you think. Now, at this point, we're going to move away from reading just individual books just for fun. And now we're going to start looking at it as literature, which really just means this is nothing. It really doesn't mean anything. But we're going to call it literature now, and we're going to analyze it, which again really just means we're going to think about it and talk about it. We've been training them to do that in the reading journal all along because they've read it and then they've been thinking about it and answering questions. So they're ready for that middle school level literature composition type class. You want to do math, of course, science and social studies, which I still think needs to stay focused on what they're interested in, because there really are no requirements. And if they want to do a chemistry, great. If they want to do an astronomy, great. Like, it doesn't have to be what the school system does. Do things that your kids are interested in. And then for theology, we want to talk about cultural issues. I'll show you that in a minute. Or for Bible theology and cultural issues. And then home economics, we want to move to money, food prep, like big, making meals, and large jobs, which is why it's important that they learn the cycle of a house in the latter elementary school years. And by the way, if you're behind on that, no problem. Just do what you can. Just start with the next right thing. Don't worry about, oh no, we're middle school, we haven't learned that yet. It's fine. Just go ahead and go through the elementary part and they'll learn it. It won't be a problem. Fine arts, of course, is still going to be interest-based at this age. I mentioned this already, but Bible study ideas for this age would be Heavy Feelings. So our Heavy Feelings bundle, again, all of these resources are on sale. They're 25% off right now for our back to school sale. So we hope that's a blessing to you. I know you're going to want to grab it right now, as soon as we're done. And so Heavy Feelings is really, I'm not supposed to pick favorites, am I? Heavy Feelings is my favorite series. It's my favorite series because when my kids were walking through hard times, I had no idea how to help them, and there were no resources to do so. And that was a big frustration for me. So this has been one of the series that I always wanted to write, because I want to help kids who, sometimes life isn't fair. Sometimes there are things that you're struggling with. And if nothing else, by the time you get to middle school, you have a lot of feelings and you think nothing's fair. So this is a great time to do it if you haven't had to, if you have not done it before. Heavy Feelings. We cover making lemonade, which is how to have joy when life is hard. We cover, or not just hard, but when life doesn't go your way, when life hands you lemonade, right? Or lemons, you make lemonade. Then there's anger and fear covered in this one, as well as forgiveness and hope. So that's kind of where we stand there. Excellent for that middle school age. And then the Spiritual Disciplines bundle is another great one for that age, where you're learning how to have a quiet time, how to pray. And this is a little bit more advanced, so it's not like just the basics, how to study the Bible, how to talk about your faith, and good stewardship. So that's what's in the Spiritual Disciplines bundle. All great topics. Again, you could do these studies yourself. Go find these things in the Bible and help your kids learn these topics, because that's what I think is most important at this age level. Okay. High school. Now in high school, we're going to still do that English literature and composition, which just means we're going to read a book and we're going to talk about it. We still have reading journals for that, just like we did in the younger ages. Math. We're going to think outside of the box a little bit and make sure your kids get something like consumer math, unless, here's my caveat, unless your child is on a STEM path. They might not have time to do that. They might need to focus on that. So if you have a student who's on a STEM path, probably not consumer math, but everyone else, you might get to that last math credit and think, what's the best? For a lot of kids, something like a consumer math would be good. Our consumer math, I have a picture of it here in a minute, but our consumer math is not a good fit for like 8th, 9th, and 10th graders at all. It is meant to prepare them for life. It's meant to like walk them through possible career choices and budgets and ideas for like how to manage life, all the way down to grocery shopping, to vacation planning. It's like all of those things. So not ideal for those younger high schoolers, but definitely a last math credit. Science and social studies, at this point, I just want to encourage you to think outside of the box. Read your state requirements, because we think, oh, science, they have to take biology and chemistry and physics because that's what we took in high school. No, it doesn't say that. Go read your laws for yourself and find out what it actually says. In my state, I am not required to take any of that. My kids were just required to have 2 disciplines. So they couldn't have all life science. They needed to have like a life and an earth or something like that. And so 2 of my kids took chemistry, 1 didn't. All three of them took some form of biology. We took equine science, we took marine biology, we took astronomy, we took a lot of different things. Again, if you are in this high school phase, I have a really in-depth high school video that you're going to want to check out, where I walk through like all the different ideas of things that you can take. Foreign language, same thing. Apologetics, world religions are great things to study at this time. When you get to home economics, now we want to talk about life skills, like family care type life skills. It might be things like mowing the lawn and some of those like bigger things, taking care of other family members, stuff like that. Fine arts is still interest based. Public speaking is a great thing to take in high school. Most importantly for me, get your kids into apprenticeships or shadowing. Get them thinking about their career. This is one mistake that sadly I think so many parents make, and teachers and people who are advising these poor kids. Like, we just have kids pick a career and we just keep pushing them to college instead of really thinking through, well, what is it that the Lord has gifted me for? What do I feel called to do? And what do I need to do that? And then give your kids those opportunities. Look around at your church, post it on your little church Facebook page or whatever your church does, and ask if anybody knows someone who, for example, my oldest daughter thought she wanted to be a vet. So in middle school, I set up a day. It was late middle school. I think it was like ninth grade. Whatever. Some people would call that high school. Might have been eighth grade. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Somewhere around there, I had her. I didn't have any resources, so I just called the local vet office and I said, hey, you take care of our dogs. And my daughter is really interested in becoming a vet. And I wondered if she could shadow you for the day, just watch what's going on. And she could maybe be of help or not. I know there's insurance things with stuff like this. And I know there may be times where she can't be there or whatever. But if you'd be willing, this is something that I would be willing to come chaperone if needed, just, for legal purposes, whatever. And the vet's office was like, absolutely, she can come, and you don't need to come, you've got things to do. She can come and spend the day with us. So she did. She went and spent the day with them. She came back that evening, and she said, I do not want to be a vet. It took one shadowing day. And I was like, oh, why not? She was like, you have to kill animals. Yeah, that is the sad reality. Sometimes animals have to be put down, and, that's the sad reality. But she didn't even think about that. And how could she? Because she didn't have the life experience to know that. And how sad would it have been for her to get halfway through college before she realized, oh no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to euthanize animals. So anyway, this is why apprenticeships and shadowings and getting your kids into extracurricular things that might be in their career path, any of that stuff is going to be super helpful for them along the way. So be thinking about that when you're in those high school years. Okay. Bible studies. At this point, we're going to move on to really strengthening their faith. We really want them to get very apologetic at this age. That way, they're really thinking through defending their faith and how they can talk about their faith. This bundle is called the Faithfulness Bundle. It's studies 5 books of the Bible, from Luke to Proverbs to James, which is a really key one when you're talking about faith and living out your faith and things like that. So think about a topic or think about that when you're working with your high schoolers. Okay. Most importantly, high school, I want you to think outside of the box. And these are just a few examples of the high school things, resources that we have here at Not Consumed. Again, 25% off. I don't want this to sound like a sales pitch, but our philosophy behind these things is that we really want families to be able to think outside of the box. We want them to have resources that are not traditional, that are not like all those other things, but instead give them alternatives to things that their kids really need. For example, starting with the language arts stuff at the top, that we have In Your Own Words, which is a creative writing curriculum. And in other words is a practical writing curriculum. So it's a year's curriculum that will take your kids through things like resume writing and professional emails and just lots of different things that they need for life. That is that practical application. Of course, consumer math is that same thing. It's math for life. We call it math for real life. And that's what it is. It's what is the math that you really need to know when you have to replace your bathroom floor. How do you calculate that tile and figure out what the expense is going to be? And can you afford that? And which tile can you buy? All of that stuff. We want to make sure we're equipping our kids for those things. Next up is Thrive. Thrive is PE. So it's a health PE combo for kids who don't have, so if your child is very active in a sport, you won't need this credit. You can count that sport as a credit, which again, go watch my high school video if you want to think through what, and I've got one on electives as well. But if your child isn't active in sports and you're looking for a PE alternative, this is a great one. Our philosophy on health is whole foods. And so that's the approach that's there that you'll find. And then lastly is Sounds of the Masters, which is a music appreciation curriculum, if that is a credit that your student needs. So in your own words, this is a good question that Johan, I think, please forgive me, I'm terrible with pronunciations of names, but I hope I nailed it, is asking about consumer. So if consumer math is best for 11th and 12th grade, she says, what about in your own words and in other words? So in other words is the practical writing course. I would recommend that for like a senior, maybe a junior, but probably senior year. In your own words, that's the blue one. Sorry that they're the same. They're so similar. We don't know what we were thinking. It was like my mom. My name's Kimberly and my sister's name's Christy, and she thought that was cute, but my whole life I was Crimberly. It's just like, it's that. Anyway, in your own words is the creative writing curriculum. That really is appropriate anytime in high school. So 9, 10, 11, or 12, anytime you want, maybe 9, 10, 11, if you're going to use in other words in your 12th grade year. So back to Sounds of the Masters, music appreciation. If you need a music appreciation credit, this is an easy one for students to get. They are studying exactly what it sounds like, the Masters. We are doing this from a very strong biblical worldview. So you don't have to worry about some of that in there because, studying the Masters can lead to some interesting things. So here's what I really want to leave you with as we're wrapping this up. If you teach your kids how to learn, they can learn anything. People usually say like, oh, what if there's gaps? Like, what if we don't cover earth science? Or what if we don't cover, whatever? What if my kids don't learn the states and capitals? Well, I'm just going to be honest. I learned the states and capitals. I got an A on that test. And here I am as an adult. And I'm going to just admit it right now. I don't actually know all the states and capitals anymore. I know how to find it out. I do know most of them, but I don't always remember them. Sometimes I get other big cities mixed up in there. I am doing fine in life. The point is not that our kids should never learn these things. The point is there's always gaps. There's always things that like we just missed or, I just don't remember that. And it might be different for you. Maybe you're like, oh no, I got the states and capitals, but I could not tell you anything about the presidents, or I could not tell you, whatever the things are, right? What we really need to be able to do is we need to know how to learn. We need to know how to get information and process information. We need to know how to discern information and know what is true and what is right. We need to teach our kids to go back to the Bible for that and how to do that. Not just tell them, oh, you go back to the Bible for your truth, but like how, right? So that's really what you want. When you're thinking about curriculum, I really want to encourage you to think about that. It's not about, will this piece of curriculum make sure that they learn every single thing that they ever could know? Because they're going to forget that stuff and they're not going to learn every single thing in that book. But is it going to teach them to first apply God's truth and put everything through that filter? Is it going to teach them how to learn and enjoy things and love learning? And if those boxes get checked, then you've got the best curriculum that your child can have. And that's amazing, right? So I've told you this already. We are having a back to school sale. Please don't wait, because I don't want anything to sell out on you or anything like that. Grab your resources now. They're 25% off. Everything in the store. This is our blessing to you and our gift to you. I do hope it's a blessing. I do see one quick question that I want to answer before I close. And the question is, I applied the wrong options from my rewards to my cart, and you can't change it. If you'll just email customer service, I'm sure they'd be glad to help you hammer that out and figure that out. Maybe include a screenshot so they know what kind of problem you're having. They're so gracious and they would love to help you. So, okay. Phew, that was a lot in a very, very, very whirlwind period of time. If you have a question, drop it in the comments. We would love to answer you. We'll love to come back and just kind of guide you to whatever information you're looking for. I hope this was a blessing. Go shop. Grab your resources at 25% off, and we'll see you in our next video. Bye.